Welcome everyone to our first of two webinars we're doing on our Big Ideas Toolkit. I'm Adrienne Check, I'm the program manager of the Big Ideas contest, and I've been with this initiative for about 2.5 years now and spent a lot of time over the course of the last summer working on this toolkit, and really excited to share some of our lessons learned with all of you. So we welcome all of our contest managers from across different universities also implementing social impact contests, and really encourage you to reach out to us to give us feedback on this document, because it's the only way we really build out this network of social impact innovation resources at different university settings and start to create partnerships and start conversations with all of you too. Just a quick note on how to participate in today's webinar. You can always write any questions you have in our Say Something box on the upper right-hand corner of your YouTube live video player, or you can just send questions to me at bigideas@berkeley.edu, and there's a little bit of a delay, but I'll try my best to answer your questions by the end of the webinar. And if I don't get any questions from you, I'll just cover some of the main FAQ that people typically ask us when we share information on big ideas. So to just give you some context, this is the second edition of this toolkit that we've produced. Our first edition was released in 2013, and that was really a partnership that we had with the US Agency for International Development's Global Development Lab. And it was an effort to really open source all of these contest management strategies. So with all of these different prize opportunities popping up across college campuses in the US and abroad, a lot of those lessons learned haven't been shared, and there has been a lot of energy to start these contests, and we just wanted to make this process as transparent, as seamless as possible for everyone who wants to build up these different types of environments at their respective campuses. So even after the conclusion of this event, I'll post some contact information for you to reach out to us if you would like to start these conversations. And we're, of course, very willing to do so. We'd love to have frank conversations with you in terms of the resources and demands, both from the management side and from the student side as well, on how to best implement these kinds of initiatives at your campus. So we have three goals for today, really. First, we'd like to invite you to read the actual document. So we have our toolkit both in PDF and online format that we encourage you to read. It's a lengthy, over 50-page document, but we separated it out into different chapters that we think are particularly relevant to you. So there's a whole chapter on how to recruit judges and mentors, or how to do the outreach and the marketing of this different contests. Or if you wanted to expand your contest to more than just the university you're operating from, how do you begin to think about that process, and how do you begin to strategize and do the similar outreach that you've done on your own campus? Secondly, we'd like to start these conversations with you and get as much feedback from you as to what has been helpful from this toolkit in terms of your implementation for your contest, what knowledge gaps still exist, and then also hear from you what challenges have you faced and what best practices have you developed in your experience implementing these contests. And then lastly, in the best case scenario, these conversations will turn into ongoing conversations that we have and potentially catalyze some partnerships that we could start to establish, especially with universities who are starting to build this environment at each of their campuses. We'd love to hear from you and explore further opportunities for partnership. So to do this, we're going to do several things today. I will give you a quick overview of Big Ideas, our history, and our intended impact. And then we'll go through some key pivots that we've made in the contest in order to achieve some of the goals that we've stated. Actually walk through the toolkit so you know what's there, you know what chapters are there, and what resources are available. I just want to really quickly flag we have this great appendix of different tools that you could use that features templates on everything from surveys to outreach strategies to design materials for the contest to how to communicate with judges and mentors. All of that is in there as well. And then lastly, we'll open this up for Q&A and try to have as much of a conversation as we can have as possible via webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to switch over to a presentation, and I want to just ask you to bear with me in case we go through any tough technical difficulties. So all of you should be looking at a presentation now that says Big Ideas Toolkit, and this is through Prezi. And I'll just quickly give a history of Big Ideas and where we've come from. So the Big Ideas Innovation Contest is just over 10 years now. It was founded in 2005 as a resource to provide funding for innovative student-led research projects at UC Berkeley. So a lot of graduate student or PhD student research that wasn't getting enough funding support. But since then, it's become a lot larger, it's become more multidisciplinary, more diverse, more entrepreneurial, and certainly more globally focused as well. The contest is managed by the Blum Center, which is an interdisciplinary organization on the UC Berkeley campus, and is made possible through some key partnerships that we have, including the Red Family Foundation, the University of California Office of the President, and the U.S. Agency for International Development's Global Development Lab. And thank you to all of these sponsors that have made this contest possible today. And in the implementation of our contest, there's been a lot of conversation in recent years over the power of the prize competition. And our team has served on a number of speaking panels to talk about big ideas. And one of the most common questions that's consistently raised over time is are we offering an appropriate level of support in return for the time and energy that all of these students are putting into this process? And we feel that we've developed a successful model for harnessing the creativity, passion, and innovation of aspiring student innovators, supporting students to develop and deepen these skills, and providing funding and validation and networks to help them move forward. Which is why we'd like to open source all of this information and teach you kind of some of the things that we've learned in terms of our iteration of this contest. So just to give you an idea of what Big Ideas is and how it might be different from the different contests that you're implementing on your campus, we are a year-long annual innovation contest that functions on 2 cycles. So in what we call the pre-proposal round, students submit a 3-page concept note outlining the problem they're addressing and how their innovation addresses it, as long as identifying their competitors and collaborators. Then we pick a pool of finalists from that, move them on to what we call the final round, where we pair them with a mentor and encourage them to develop 10 to 15-page full proposals. So our contest is open to interdisciplinary teams of undergraduate and graduate students, and anyone who's looking to address a critical problem with an innovative solution they have. And to give you an idea of the scope and the scale of our contests, in this past contest cycle, we received 326 social innovation proposals to be implemented in over 30 countries from 937 students from 16 campuses across 9 different categories. And as you can see from the logos in front of you, these are the different categories we have, anything ranging from art and social change to financial inclusion to global health to hardware for good. So in a diverse array of topic areas that students can potentially submit their proposals for. Each year, we award up to $300,000 in prizes to these innovative social ventures, and we pick multiple winners across each category. So each category, depending on the amount of support and resources we have, can win anywhere from 1st to 3rd place to honorable mention with different funding amounts. So each year we come out with between usually 30 to 40 winners each contest cycle. But it's important to note that the structure of our contest is really based on some of the strategic decisions we've made to reach our explicitly stated goals. So our contest goals are really twofold. The first one is to support innovative projects with promising potential for social impact. So Big Ideas has supported more than 1,600 nonprofit student groups or businesses and funded nearly 400 of these. So we accelerate the development of social ventures. So projects that probably would have existed even without the presence of Big Ideas, but maybe they would have moved more slowly or without substantial support, maybe gotten discouraged in the process. So we think we accelerate these social ventures. And then secondly, we also think we played a huge part in inspiring and encouraging entirely new social ventures. So for the $1.6 million we've invested, teams have gone on to secure over 150 million in additional funding. If you want to learn more about some of the things that our winners have done, I just encourage you to go to our website, bigideas.berkeley.edu, and you'll see a past winners column, a past winners tab at the top of the website where you can read up on some of the work that students have done across categories and across campuses as well. The second goal we have really is to foster a diverse pipeline of young innovators and global change makers. So to date, over 5,000 students have participated in Big Ideas, and we believe that the educational component of the innovation program is just as important as the impact of their social ventures. So Big Ideas invests in these paths for them to become social entrepreneurs. We use kind of the low-risk environment of the university setting, coupled with an extensive support suite and skills development opportunities to encourage and legitimize some of these students in what they're trying to achieve. And we do believe that by encouraging them to tackle more social problems and also giving them the skills to do so, we're building out this population of global change makers. One of our great examples is a student group turned into a company called Back to the Roots, which is now a nationwide company. But it was essentially these two undergraduate students at UC Berkeley who were majoring in business. And they had offers to go into management consulting and finance, but ultimately turned it down because they got a bit of encouragement from UC Berkeley through Big Ideas and then also other competitions to move their project forward. And now they have a very successful social enterprise that focuses on developing out these healthy cereal brands. And this all came from their initial effort to turn recycled coffee grounds into mushroom farms and create a more sustainable recycling process for that. So we do this by giving out surveys every year and then analyzing those surveys on an annual basis. So we track Big Ideas participants over the course of this year-long program, and we witness increases in both their readiness to implement a social venture, which implies that they feel more equipped with the necessary skills to do so after participating in Big Ideas. We see the number of teams increase over the year. And we also witness an increase in the number of students that list startup ventures as their top choice career track by the end of the contest. And this difference most notably comes from a lot of our female team leads that lead Big Ideas, where we see that number actually double from the time they come into the pre-proposal round to the time that they leave. In terms of adopting more entrepreneurial related skill sets, we kind of test students' confidence levels when they come in November and when they leave in March. And they report significant improvements in being able to better conduct a needs assessment, develop a compelling grant proposal, pitch their projects, and develop a comprehensive implementation plan. So Big Ideas has been especially successful in attracting proposals from a diverse mix of education levels, academic disciplines, which is about on average over 100 each year, 50 countries of origin, and a high representation of women, of undergraduates, and of underrepresented minorities, tackling a wide range of problems all over the world. So what does this mean in terms of how we've designed and structured our contests? So it's important to note that Big Ideas wasn't always this way, that we implemented a lot of these structural changes because we wanted to increase more diverse participation. The contest looked really different actually when it first started. It was primarily, as I mentioned, a white paper competition for graduate students who needed a little bit of funding for their research. But we did a few key pivots that I think would be useful for you to know of. First of all, We changed the contest structure into a 2-cycle format where they put in that initial concept note and then develop a full implementation plan later on. And the first round, they are judged primarily on their creativity and novelty of the idea, and then their second round, viability. And in doing so, we really leveled the playing field, especially between undergraduate and graduate students, and lowered the bar of entry for them to come in, and then really pushed them to think through some of the critical details they needed to do in order to implement these programs longer term. The second big pivot we did was made it a year-long annual contest. So even if students are not successful in their first year and they don't get funding the first time they apply, they're highly encouraged to reapply after spending another year iterating on their project design and doing more research and better articulating what exactly they're trying to do. So very much focus on the educational and the growth of the student throughout the course of the contest. Third, we added a diverse set of categories, and I encourage you all to go into our category development chapter to read more about this because it's quite interesting actually. But entrepreneurship is seen primarily as a business school related track, but we've personally discovered that it really doesn't need to be. And it doesn't need to be pitched in that way too, that entrepreneurship can be problem-driven and problem-focused. And if you start to talk to students from other departments in this way, by focus on alleviating this problem, then you'll get a lot of participation from departments that are outside of just business. We've also developed a wide array of support services, workshops, advising sessions. We've developed this program that we call the Practitioners and Residents session that brings in industry experts within our judge and mentor network and develops opportunities for students to get one-on-one advising from these industry experts and feedback on their projects. So it's not just a purely academic experience. They're really testing with folks who have that field experience whether or not some of their projects would be able to work in the real world. And in the course of doing so, we really focus on emphasizing those critical thinking skill sets and building out that network of industry experts for students to tap into as they develop their projects over time. We also want to make note that Big Ideas offers an award and not a grant to students. So part of this is because we are focused on the educational component, and we ask a lot of students over the course of 1 year to develop out this plan. And we want to be able to award them for it and focus on the learning and the growth aspect of this process. And it also helps us with some IP constraints from the university setting too that we can also avoid. We've also developed a suite of post-contest resources because over the years, after Big Ideas, participants leave the contest and we kind of reach out to alumni to check in on them, on how their projects are doing. We've learned that there's a huge gap in between when they leave our contest and when they can go on to implement. Because a lot of these projects are still quite early stage, they still need mentorship, they still need funding, and they still need advising. So in response, we've done a bunch of things like develop our scaling up category where previous applicants can come back into Big Ideas and apply for another round of funding and mentorship. We've developed an actual course that is offered to all UC Berkeley students called the Social Innovator On-Ramp course that allows them to really focus and dedicate an entire semester to the development of their project. We've developed partnerships with on-campus and off-campus accelerators, incubators, and crowdfunding platforms like Echoing Green, like Skydeck, like UC Berkeley's Launch Accelerator, and UC Berkeley's crowdfunding campaign to give these projects an additional next step. And we've also developed our Social Innovator On-Ramp resource guide, which really points students in the direction of what other contest opportunities or accelerators or support services they can access after they leave our competition. So that brings us to the Big Ideas Toolkit. And I want to quickly go over what is in our table of contents just so you know what is there. But really, I highly encourage you to look in our appendix, where we have a wealth of information and all these templates from anywhere from how to market our market contests to students, design materials, how we communicate with judges and mentors, and loop them in on our process, but also keep them engaged and fully aware of what it takes to provide adequate feedback in this contest process. So to quickly go over the table of contents, we first start out with our executive summary, which provides a basic overview of every chapter and kind of key takeaways in each chapter. So if you're short on time, that's probably the best place to go. But each of these chapters has a lot of information, and we go into great detail in terms of the nitty-gritty of managing the contest and some of the strategic decisions we've made. So we have a lot on the formation and development of the contest. I've covered a lot of material on mission and goals and our history, but you might be really interested in how we manage the program and the responsibilities of all the different staff that is required to implement this contest. So in our program management chapter, we have staff description and the roles required to cover our current iteration of the 16 campus-wide competition. But of course, you might need fewer staff in order to just implement this only on your campus. We have a whole chapter on funding and partnerships, so how Big Ideas develops sponsorships and partnerships, and then also how those sponsorships turn into category development, and how we change those categories over time to both balance the participation from our students, but also to kind of attract more attention and support in each category as well. You might also really be interested in our evaluation and feedback chapter. So how Big Ideas thinks about and measures its impact, how we give out surveys, how we continue to collect information. And just to give you a quick overview, we do think of our impact in a few different ways. We think of it in terms of the size and diversity of the applicant pool, the transformative nature of the programs on applicants in terms of skills development and career choices, and then the amount of progress that Big Ideas teams have achieved to date. So how much funding they've secured since leaving, how much staff they've hired, how many beneficiaries they've served, etc. We also have a lot of information on the nuts and bolts of participating in the contest. So our contest structure and requirements, anything from our official rules to eligibility to agreements that are signed between our team and Big Ideas applicants. A whole chapter on outreach and marketing, so how to get the word out. And we at Big Ideas feel like this is one of our strengths, so we're great at being able to get the word out, not only on the UC Berkeley campus, but across our partner campuses as well. So I encourage you to look in that chapter for any insights that might be helpful to you. And then a whole chapter on what online contest platform we ended up choosing to move forward with. So a few years ago, we did an extensive review on the different online contest platforms that are out there, analyze their costs, analyze their benefits, and how easy it is for us as contest managers to use these platforms, and what we ultimately came out with. So for a lot of folks who are just starting to run these contests on your campus, this is probably of great use to you. We also have a lot on resources for students. So an entire chapter that covers what our core offerings are, like the workshops, the information sessions, how to develop PIRs, an entire chapter on advising. So how do we balance encouraging students to look at spaces that they haven't really thought to look at before, but also really making sure that that idea is student-led and student-initiated and stays with them, so that we're not pushing information on them that will significantly change the direction of their project, but also encourage them to just develop those critical thinking skills so that they can continue to do so in the future. Chapter on mentorship and judging, so how to recruit and pair mentors, how to train judges to make sure that they're giving adequate feedback to our teams and understand our process. We have training videos, we have outreach emails, etc. something on prize awards, so how we disperse the awards and the expectations asked of our winners. Additional contest opportunities, so external prize events in addition to what we award in terms of our full proposal funding. So we have a video contest, we have poster sessions, we have a pitch day where they can win anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000, and how these different events add to more skills development opportunities for students. And then, as I mentioned, post-contest support. So if you're really interested in how to bridge that gap for students, that's a great chapter to look into as well. And for anyone who really wants to move beyond just their university-based competition to maybe do some cross-campus expansion, that final chapter will be of great use to you and covers a lot of lessons learned that we've been able to develop after partnering with the University of California Office of the President, as well as the USAID Higher Education Solutions Network, and how we've moved from a one campus contest to a 16 campus contest. And then importantly, at the end of each of these chapters, you'll have a section on tips, so just some quick recommendations and things we've learned that will be useful to use for you, and then a section on tools. So as I mentioned, all of these different templates and resources that we think will be really, really useful to you as you move forward in the development of your contests. So as I mentioned, we have both a PDF and an online version, and all of you should have access to our toolkit online, given that you're watching this video. This is posted in the YouTube description below. So just go to our toolkit, and it's up to you whether or not you want to download this full document or you want to just read it online. Both have different advantages. But as you're doing that, we just ask you to continue to reach out to us, give us feedback on how this toolkit has been useful to you and where you think we could further develop out these sections as we continue to treat this as a living document too. The great thing about Big Ideas is we're really focused on constantly adapting our contests to student needs. So we're going to treat this as a living document, and thus any feedback you can give us at any time would be of great use to us. So here is our contact information. You can always reach us at bigideas@berkeley.edu or call us on that number, and we'd love to start these conversations with you. But I will just answer some key questions that have come up throughout the course of this webinar. Our first question is with regard to the management of mentorship programs. So after recruiting mentors, how do you ensure that they stay engaged? How do you assess students' experiences with mentors, and how does that matching happen? So this is a great question. We're actually in the thick of our mentorship period with our current contest cycle right now. And I'm sure Philip, the director of this contest, would agree with me when we say we put a lot of energy and time into this mentor matching process. So for anyone who's interested in being a mentor, we have them fill out an application form and lay out where their different skills sets and strengths are. Then when we pick our pool of finalists, we give those finalists a similar application form where they lay out exactly who their ideal mentor is. And a lot of this time, this is like a medical device entrepreneur in Silicon Valley that can kind of help with marketing and product development for the team. So we look through our pool of mentors, look through their skill sets, and then ask those mentors if they think that the team, based on a short description of their project, if it's a good match and the mentor signs on to it, then we'll match the team with the mentor. But throughout this process, it's a lot of communication between our team and the teams and the mentors, because for a lot of student teams, this is their first experience dealing with a mentorship, and they're not always aware that they should be the ones taking an initiative and setting an agenda and being extremely responsive to the mentors. And then the mentors alike are equally as busy, if not more busy, and it's difficult to schedule. So the Big Ideas team does act as a mediator in many circumstances, but what we ask teams and mentors to do early on is set expectations, set goals, and lay out a weekly time to meet, whether it's a phone call, whether it's in person. And we find that 6 to 7 week period is the absolute minimum you would even need. to start establishing that trust and start establishing a good rapport between teams and between mentors. Yep, so tons of communication and a lot of energy putting towards that matching process to make sure it's a great fit between both team and mentor. Our second question is, what are some good ways to monitor and evaluate as well as advertise the progress of student innovators? So this is a great question, especially because I personally do a lot of the M&E with regard to this contest, and I encourage you again to look at that chapter for a little bit more detail. But essentially, we do two main surveys throughout the course of the contest year. So when students apply, they fill out a survey in November, and then when the finalists move on to the next round, we have them fill out a second survey. So we can actually measure, by asking the same questions at 2 points in time, their progress over the course of those months and after the mentorship to see what their development is. And we actually take a lot of those same questions and reach out to our alumni. So we go back, and when we do our alumni outreach, we ask those same questions, and then we're thus able to track progress over the course of many years, and see at what point teams start to secure team members, start to secure additional fundraising, to secure additional funding, pilot their projects, incorporate, things like that. And I'm happy to discuss this in more detail if that is useful at all to you. There's also a question on how many staff is required to implement such an innovation contest. And as I mentioned, we have our current iteration in our staff requirements and roles chapter of the toolkit. We describe the staffing needs for our current iteration of the contest, which is 16 campuses. And that's primarily one full-time director, one full-time manager and or coordinator, and then one part-time graduate student who helps us with the judge and mentor recruitment, which is in itself a huge work stream as well. And then we also have some other students that help with the design aspects of the contest, as well as just basic kind of data management. But that's for a 16 campus-wide competition. And I think if it's just one university, there's a lot of potential to scale that down. Maybe either a contest manager or director, and maybe one or two students to help them get it off the ground without those additional resources and skills development opportunities that we currently offer through Big Ideas. Absolutely open to talk to this in more detail if you would like to as well. Okay, and our last question is actually, so what are some of the key knowledge gaps for most students? So we do this analysis in a couple ways. One, we do it through our surveys in terms of tracking their confidence in terms of what they feel strongly about. So as I mentioned earlier, students go through a process and they feel really strongly about their ability to pitch and to write a compelling proposal. But they still require help in terms of establishing a network that will be able to carry out their project. And of course, we try to build this through our PIRs and our mentorship and our judges. But given that all of these opportunities are pro bono, there's no requirement for those judges and mentors to stay on past the contest cycle. So that's always been a challenge that we've tried to do. And then some teams require more assistance with things like financial budgeting or modeling or looking at different funding sources they could possibly tap into to take this project forward. So that's another area, another big knowledge gap for students. And then we also look at the actual proposal process and look through judge feedback and see if there's any trends amongst all the students that submit proposals. And over, we see that students have a hard time listing out their potential collaborators and competitors. So mapping out their existing landscape, doing kind of a systems-wide analysis, and being able to see who else is working in this space and what have they done that has been successful and hasn't been successful. So in order to address this, we actually built in an extra requirement for our Big Ideas teams in the proposals around to develop an existing solutions section where they're required and judged upon that whether or not they have considered all the other nonprofits that are probably doing really similar work. And we encourage them to do that, and we try to build this into the structure of the contest so that students are regularly doing this, and will continue to do this even when they leave the contest too. So since I'm happy to answer anything offline. So please, as I mentioned, just send me an email at bigideas@berkeley.edu. And we really do look forward to hearing from you and hear your feedback about this toolkit and about your own experience launching a student innovation contest at your respective university as well. So thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to hearing from you.